How many trades do you need before you can actually trust your trading strategy? 10 trades, 20 trades, 1 profitable month, 3 profitable months? For me, the answer is very different. Whenever I develop, test, or refine a trading strategy or framework, I prefer to backtest it over a minimum period of 1 year. And there is a very important reason for that. A strategy can look amazing for a few weeks. It can even perform extremely well for several months, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have a reliable strategy. You may simply have tested it during a market environment that was perfectly suited to it. And when that environment changes, everything can suddenly look very different. So in this video, I want to explain how I approach backtesting, what I believe traders should actually be looking for, and why proper backtesting can give you something far more valuable than a high win rate. It can give you evidence. Welcome back to Fundex Trading Academy. If you're new here, my approach to trading is based on a simple principle. We don't predict the market. We build a process for responding to what the market gives us. And backtesting is an important part of that process. One of the biggest mistakes I see traders make is finding a new strategy, testing it over a short period, seeing some profitable results, and immediately deciding, this works. Then they start trading it with real money. A few losses appear. Confidence disappears. They start changing the rules, then they change the strategy, and eventually they start looking for the next strategy. This cycle can continue for years. The problem isn't necessarily that all those strategies were bad. The trader simply never collected enough evidence to understand what they were trading. Imagine you backtest for 1 month. You find 12 trades, 9 of them win. That's a 75% win rate. It looks fantastic. But what have you actually discovered? Maybe the market was trending strongly during that month. Maybe your strategy naturally performs well in trending conditions. What happens when the market starts ranging? What happens when volatility increases? What happens when volatility disappears? What happens around major economic events? What happens when the market transitions from one condition into another? You don't know yet. This is why I don't like drawing conclusions from a few weeks or even a few months of good results. The purpose of backtesting isn't to prove that your strategy works. The purpose is to discover how your strategy behaves, and those are two very different things. Personally, when I am properly evaluating a trading strategy or framework, I prefer to test it over a minimum period of 1 year. But I want to make something very clear. 1 year isn't a magic number. Testing from January to December doesn't suddenly certify a strategy as profitable. What I'm trying to achieve is exposure to different market environments. During a longer testing period, you are more likely to experience trending markets, ranging markets, high volatility periods, low volatility periods, major economic announcements, sharp reversals, periods when your setup appears frequently, and periods when almost nothing qualifies. That's important because I don't only want to know, how much money could this strategy have made? I want to know, what does this strategy look like when conditions are difficult? That question is much more important. Time alone isn't enough either. Suppose you backtest an entire year, but your strategy produces only 15 trades. That is very different from a strategy producing 150 trades during the same period. So I look at both the period being tested and the number of valid setups within that period. The larger and more representative your sample becomes, the more meaningful your observations can become. You start discovering patterns. Maybe one particular confirmation performs better than another. Maybe certain market conditions produce poor quality setups. Maybe your strategy performs better during particular sessions. Maybe certain setups require a larger stop. Maybe you discover that some trades you previously considered valid should never have qualified under your rules. This is where backtesting becomes extremely valuable. You're no longer looking at individual trades. You're looking at behavior across a body of evidence. This brings me to another mistake I see frequently. Someone says, my strategy has an 80% win rate. My next question would be, what else do you know about it? Because win rate by itself tells me very little. Imagine strategy A wins 80% of its trades, but makes a small amount on its winners and suffers very large losses. Strategy B wins only 50% of its trades, but its average winner is significantly larger than its average loser. Which strategy is better? You can't answer that from win rate alone. This is why traders should understand things such as win rate, average winner, average loser, risk to reward, maximum losing streak, drawdown, number of trades, and most importantly, expectancy. In simple terms, expectancy asks, over a large number of trades, what can I reasonably expect this strategy to produce per trade? A profitable trading framework doesn't need to win every trade. It needs to have a positive edge when executed consistently, over a meaningful sample. And this may sound strange, but when I'm reviewing backtesting results, I'm particularly interested in the losing periods. Why? Because winning periods are easy psychologically. Everything feels good. You trust your analysis, you trust your entries, you trust yourself. The real test comes when you have several losses in a row. Suppose your backtesting tells you that a particular framework historically experienced 5 consecutive losses before recovering. Now imagine you're trading live and you've just taken your 4th loss. Without that historical evidence, you may start thinking, something is wrong. This strategy has stopped working. Maybe I need to change something. And that's exactly where traders often interfere with their own systems. But if your research has already shown you that losing sequences are normal, you have context. Backtesting doesn't remove losses. It helps you understand whether those losses are within the normal behavior of your framework. And this is probably the most important part. Backtesting can never tell you exactly what will happen tomorrow. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Market conditions change. Volatility changes, relationships between markets change, and sometimes strategies need to be reviewed. So the purpose isn't certainty. The purpose is evidence-based confidence. There is a major difference between saying, I think this setup works, and saying, I have tested this setup repeatedly across different conditions, and I understand its strengths, weaknesses, and historical behavior. That second trader is much less likely to panic after 2 losses. They're less likely to abandon the strategy. They're less likely to randomly change the rules, and they're much more likely to execute consistently. There is another important discipline. Define the rules before you start collecting the results. Your entry conditions, your confirmation, your stop-loss rules, your target, your trade management, your invalidation conditions, and what qualifies as no trade. Then test those rules consistently. If you change the rules every time you see a losing trade, you're not really backtesting anymore. You're fitting your strategy to historical price. Of course, you can discover something important and refine the framework, but if you do that, document the change. Then test the revised rules again. You want the evidence to test your framework. You don't want to keep changing the framework until it perfectly fits the evidence. So instead of asking, does my strategy work? Ask better questions. How does it perform when the market trends? How does it perform when the market ranges? What's its historical losing streak? What is its drawdown? What is its expectancy? Which conditions produce the strongest setups? Which conditions tell me to stay out? And finally, can I realistically execute this strategy when real money and emotions are involved? Because a strategy can look incredible on a spreadsheet and still be completely unsuitable for the person trying to trade it. For me, backtesting is not about finding a perfect strategy. There is no perfect strategy. It's about building enough evidence that when my setup appears in the live market, I don't have to debate with myself. I know what I'm looking for. I know what invalidates the setup. I know what my risk is. I know losses are part of the process, and I understand the historical behavior of the framework I'm executing. That's why I personally prefer a minimum of 1 year of backtesting when properly evaluating a strategy or framework, and I may continue testing well beyond that. Not because 12 months guarantees success, but because I want evidence across enough trades and enough different market conditions before I put my trust in it. So before you trade your strategy tomorrow, ask yourself one question. Have I actually tested this enough to trust it when the losing streak comes? Because confidence shouldn't come from your last winning trade. Confidence should come from evidence. If you found this useful, subscribe to Fundex Trading Academy for more practical trading education, market analysis, and funded trader development. And remember, don't trade what you hope will happen. Trade the process you've tested.